welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at gods5minutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. Jesus has a way of paying visits to each of us, but they don't always come as we may expect. An example is Matthew 2:1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when they had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written by the prophet, Thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Notice the sequence. The leaders of the Israelites were expecting a Messiah. But how did they think he would appear? Their later questions to the mature Jesus indicated they thought to see the signs of Moses with his stark, smoking Sinai, the mountain that might not be touched, and the stern thou shalts of the 10 Commandments. But raised to what? For if Moses' law had not been righteous enough, then there would have to be even more stringent requirements for people to fully be at peace with God. How completely that expectation missed the cleansing of the heart promised by the gentle Jesus who brought peace instead of dread. Maybe these learned men of the Jewish religion expected the long-awaited Messiah to come in a manner that would somehow validate their posture as a creme de la creme of spirituality. Behind them lay centuries of God's visits, from Abraham's separation from his people to the 10 Commandments to the miracles and preaching of the apostolates. Each of these had been steps in a staircase intended to lead to this supreme moment of God's gift to us, and thus to eternal life. The fact is, God's visits with us have a way of approaching from a direction that touches the center of each of our individual need for a personal contact with Him. While it may be built on teachings we have had, it appeals most directly to the conditions and spiritual needs of our own hearts. So there was no prophet who came and pointed a staff at the cradle of the king. Instead, foreigners, schooled only in the science of their country, announced the great message that Messiah had been born, and even that word came not to the scribes and Pharisees, but to wicked Herod, their governor, who represented the hated Roman authority. And so they answered. They knew where to send these strangers from some distant land with their tale of a guiding star. Do we sometimes do the same? Tell others where to find help to the soul which we ourselves do not pursue? Isn't the story amazing? Why were these religious leaders not a least bit curious enough to at least make that little 5-mile journey from Jerusalem to go and see for themselves if there was something taking place at Bethlehem? The fact that it could have been done is proven. The wise men did it easily, even after having already come from so far. Well, folks, they had their era, and we have ours. They handled their opportunity to look into the face of the infinite Christ, heaven's greatest gift to earth, and they passed it by, indifferent, unbelieving, offended because it didn't come as they expected. They are dust. You and I are here. That same Christ is awaiting us today, wanting that we should come, not to see him in a manger, perhaps by means that we never suspected, but always coming faithfully, mercifully to each of us, intending to point first to the cradle, then to the cross, ultimately to our own salvation. Thank God we can be open to Jesus' gentle visits, however they come, and have our own time to come and see his face, whether we see it in lowly places or lofty ones. Have you talked to him today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at godsfive minutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.